So many of you probably don't know, but the Tommy Novus mission is very near and dear to my heart. My mom spent her entire career working in a facility with a very similar mission. So it was quite exciting when I met Megan and we first started having conversations about being able to showcase the great work that they're doing here. So let's go ahead and move on with our panel. So this evening we're going to be talking about the processes that you need to help optimize your family business performance. So that'll tell us a little bit about growth, but also doing so in a way that honors the legacy of your family. So it doesn't only have to be focused on growing a business, but also maintaining what has come before. And so with us this evening, we have Joe Farage, and Joe has helped transform operations and drive growth for family-owned businesses and corporations, including international experience. And he has done this across 48 different countries.
Wow.
It's just so impressive. Wow. He specializes in helping mid-market businesses scale and develop strategic exit plans to ensure a seamless transition when it's time to grow or sell. So thank you for joining us, Joe. Next, we have Christy Renee Stehle, and she guides businesses to align communication, simplify marketing chaos, and build trust to drive growth. With over a decade of experience and training from an Emmy award-winning agency, she crafts and delivers frameworks that streamline processes and do the heavy sales lifting for competitive success. Thank you for joining us, Christy.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have Dean Nolly. Dean helps companies grow sales by addressing issues related to the lack of a structured sales process or growth outpacing the company's structure. The approach involves repairing or building a sales strategy, processes, metrics, and a team to create a sustainable and scalable growth model supported by customized and data-driven sales playbooks. So thank you for joining us, Dean. So my first question for the panel is a little broad. I would like to know what trends you all are seeing with small and medium-sized family business owners. What are you seeing?
Absolutely. Well, the trends that I'm seeing in business really are, it really applies to business whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a large enterprise. And that is because in 2025, we've entered into what leading research firms call an official new era of business. And you guys may not have heard about this, but I bet that you felt it. Every business that I talk to, they right now are saying that they experience a lot of marketing chaos, or they're just pretty scattered in their communication. And oftentimes when a business is scattered, you're too scattered for others to understand how or why they should buy in. So when you mentioned that I help businesses align, that's really an operational process that most businesses don't think about. But are you operating in the way that you say that you are? And something really powerful happens when you do align this communication, and that's where the magnetic storytelling aspect comes in, because you're able to be more potent in your communication and really rise above these growth and visibility challenges that we're seeing today.
Maybe if we are taking that long-term perspective and we're wanting to pass the business on to the next generation, it's worth doing the work now. Hey, I'd like to take this a little bit different of a direction and talk about the story behind the family business. And so for so many of you all, you probably have a page on your website. Where do we come from? What's our story? How did we get here? And it subtly weaves in all of your values and what you stand for. And that's a lovely, static web page, right? Does anybody go there and read it? I don't know. I do. I would be the one. Oh, yeah, thank you. So there's a couple people, but we can do so much more with just what our story is on the webpage. So Christy, could you tell us a little bit about how processes work in storytelling? How do we go from a webpage to something that's a bit more dynamic?
Oh, I love this question. It's okay. It's a safe space here. Does anybody know really what brand storytelling is? Outside of, yes, we've got a marketer, yes, a couple people, yes, we have a few. So the old way of doing things really was just to have your brand story on an About Us page, because consumers in the last decade or so didn't really care, right? They wanted the product, the services, the features, the benefits. Is this a pain? Will it solve my problem? But today, having a business is easier than starting a business is easier than it's ever been. The barrier of entry is really low. You've got all of these tools now, all of these AI tools. I feel that a lot of consumers, and this is not just what I feel, but statistics show that we have a generation of buyers who are the least trusting and the most guarded that they've ever been. Raise your hand if in the last month, in the last week, you have had a text message come to you trying to get money. They're a recruiter, they're a parking ticket, they are some kind of, you didn't pay your toll on the highway. Yes. So this shift is changing buyer expectations, and it's making us really guarded in a way that we don't want to we don't even want to engage with a new business or somebody that we haven't heard of before because we don't trust that it's real. And not to really go there, but how much can we really believe that we read online anymore, right? So couple this with the fact that I know we had a slide up there a minute ago that was sharing some statistics about Gen Z. In 2025, it said that instead of that 5%, that Gen Z has actually replaced baby boomers in the workplace. This has happened. And so of this new generation, they really favor personal connection more than they ever have, which is great because I think a lot of us thought, oh my gosh, AI, human elements going away, it's just all gonna be artificial intelligence and ugh. But what's great is that we're seeing that no, this new generation is like, if it's not authentic, if it's not connected, I don't want it. Now, that's true, but just like Dean is saying, they also don't want a salesperson. They want self-service digital interactions that make them feel personally connected. How do you do that? What do you think? How do you do that? Any ideas? No? We're here to listen to me? It's through the language that you use. So think about, I wondered if I was going to use this example, and it seems like I'm going to. If my boyfriend is watching this recording, he may not be happy. I'm somebody who's always been really about words. And so for me to be able to text message with somebody, you're going to get my voice in the text message. I can spell whoa, I can spell wow, I can communicate with emojis. Now, for some people who may be more mathematically minded, like my boyfriend, when I was like, babe, I need you to communicate differently in your texts, right? I need to feel something. I need to feel that you care. And it was a really fun experiment to be able to watch this because at first, I was like, I really appreciate your effort, but honey, you sound like AI. You sound like a bot. And it really, I asked him if he did. I was like, I appreciate your effort. And I think that this is such a good, I'm being transparent, I'm being vulnerable here with a real scenario, but I think that this is something that a lot of people who aren't so linguistically minded can face. How do I use language? Is ChatGPT making me sound better? Do I feature all the products? What do I choose? What do I put? And at the end, when we understand how to come back to that process of storytelling, we're not just putting our story on an About Us page. We're infusing a culture. You mentioned culture as well. This is very important. This is how you can retain top talent. This is, even if you're in a family business, I think one of the luncheons that we met together, somebody was like, yeah, I have a family business, but I'm not in it anymore. That could be for a lot of reasons, but we need to protect our talent. We need to protect our culture. And the language and connection that you create from behind the screen is a big way of doing this. And so the processes in storytelling come down to, we have a story, we have a reason for being. This is what people want now because there's so many businesses out there that do what you do. I need to know why it matters for me, and I need to know why it matters for you. What's your purpose? Can I get on board? Is there a culture to that I can connect with? And from there, it becomes, now can you tell it in one sentence? I think company culture has become this nebulous area since 2020, right? We were all in office, maybe some were going to hybrid, then we were all at home, then we were kind of hybrid, now there's some coming back to work, what does that look like? What's it going to look like? And the conversations I get in, I hear this a lot of, we want to have a culture. We also want to have our employees be remote, and we don't really know what this looks like. What should it look like? And so I think that this is another beautiful application for storytelling and brand storytelling, because then you get this story-driven culture. And like I mentioned a moment ago, when you have a culture around a reason for being, this is our why, this is your why, it helps people buy in. And I know that depending on which generation you are, you may have different opinions on this, but it's been said that Gen Z and maybe millennials as well, oh, they don't want to work, and, you know, oh, quiet quitting. And it's, depending on your perspective, you can see that they're really tolerating a lot less of unhealthy, maybe, behaviors. They want to be treated better. They want their life to be purposeful. And so for the companies, maybe regardless of what you think about that, if you can shift your perspective and say, okay, if I'm creating something that's coming from a meaningful place, and I make sure that what we say about our brand is how we operate inside, right then and there, you're creating an aligned culture. And I love when they both use the word line. My framework is align, L-I-L-A-L-I-N-G. And it's because this idea is so important. And that's, if I can share this for a moment, also the reason that I use the word magnetic storytelling is because when I was in corporate advertising, I always said, can the team align? I need the team to align before we go forward. You guys are thinking you're saying one thing and the team needs to align. So I had this idea that really mattered, and I had this concept of alignment. And then I found out that, okay, everything in the universe is made up of atoms, right? And in part, atoms are made up of electrons. And in everything in the universe except magnets, the electrons spin in opposite directions. But to be magnetic, magnets have electrons that align and spin in the same direction. Becomes magnetic, it pulls you in. And so I truly believe this about our energy and communication. And when we have this process that aligns, then we're creating a culture that is magnetic. And so I use the term walking billboards a lot too, because it's not just your company and your employees that get this culture that they can buy into, but your customers start to have it as well. And they become walking billboards for your brand, which is really important in this era of mistrust. Because when somebody you trust says, oh, this is the best, oh, you gotta go with them, then you're doing a lot of the heavy sales lifting for you. So there's a couple ways of creating that culture for sure.